When Dating Hurts is a preferred intimate partner violence podcast of Red Rover. Red Rover is a national nonprofit supporting animals and their human companions during crises. Red Rover is bringing animals from crisis to care. This episode of When Dating Hurts includes trigger warnings and disclaimers. This podcast never intends to be sensational, but the truth about dating abuse and domestic violence is needed as a warning to all to learn all you can about this subject so it never hurts you or those you care about.
I love your podcast. The other survivors that have been on your podcast have been really inspiring to me. Your story about Kristen has been also really inspiring. I just really appreciate the messages that you are sending to others and the information that you're providing. And I hope my story helps.
The When Dating Hurts podcast is completing its 5th year. We are all about raising awareness on dating abuse and domestic violence, the intimate partner information you need to stay safe. We share survivor stories, have chats with experts, and offer tips so you can spot the red flags that save lives. When Dating Hurts is eye-opening, with episodes on counseling and learning about real-life escapes from predatory abusers. Here is another episode worth your investment of time. This episode is a return visit with our survivor, Stephanie, who we spoke with years ago. She received no breaks in her life. She was adopted by a woman whose actions indicated she barely wanted Stephanie around. There was emotional abuse throughout their time as mother and child. Stephanie's first marriage yielded 2 terrific children, but her husband was emotionally abusive. And then she met Michael. We will spend plenty of time on what he did on an ongoing basis to make Stephanie's life hell on earth. Having said all of that, Stephanie's life is about as good as it can be now. Her marriage to Neil is making up for her lifetime of emotional and physical abuse. Let's check in now with Stephanie. Stephanie joined us on When Dating Hurts a good while ago. Her story took my breath away, as so many stories do. The cruelty she endured made me and many listeners, as it turns out, ask why she stayed in that relationship. We have learned since those days that sometimes it's just terribly difficult to get out. Eventually, she found her freedom, and it took planning and it took patience to do this, especially to do it safely, as she did. But that was then, and today she's in a whole different place. Stephanie, welcome back to the When Dating Hurts podcast.
Thank you. It's so nice to see your face again. And I'm so honored that you asked me to come back. So thank you.
We'll share the honor, okay? Now, I was saying to you before we hit the record button, you're such a bright light on the other side, looking at your picture on the screen. I mean, you really exude happiness.
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah. I think it's probably just all part of the process, just getting further and further away from that situation and growing and evolving from that, really, just like every day, every month, every year, farther you get away from it. And the more healed you become, I think it really, that's what I attribute it to.
The way I look at it is the echo is still there, but it's not as loud as time goes on. Listeners can hear your entire story on When Dating Hurts by heading back, way back in the rack, to episodes 42, 43, and 44. That's parts 1, 2, and 3. The first time we did an interview, we went on and on and on and on and on. And it's just such a compelling story. I just didn't want for it to end. And then on the other hand, I didn't want to edit out all those parts that I felt people needed to hear, because when you sign up in one of these relationships and you stay with it, as you did for the longest time, you were really hanging in there, if anything, trying to save somebody who was trying to do the opposite to you. So therefore, the calendar keeps turning and it keeps getting worse. And this person became more and more cruel. Stephanie, for the benefit of those who have not gone back in the rack to episodes 42, 43, and 44, just walk us through what happened. How did you meet this person? What was it like in the beginning?
I think I was about 36 or 37. I met this person through work. I had zero interest in this person. It just so happens I was going through a divorce that had already been basically in the works before I knew this person. He was also going through a divorce, and we ended up kind of becoming friends and sort of commiserating about our situations. His was a lot more dramatic and terrible than mine. Was pretty amicable for the most part. Obviously, it wasn't a great relationship, or I wouldn't have been divorcing him. Over time, I mean, he definitely did the whole love bombing. He definitely mirrored my interests, wanted to go hiking with me, wanted to play tennis, wanted to do all the things that I wanted to do. And that friendship just over time turned into a romantic relationship. You know, and looking back and having told my story many times, it's so clear to me now, like he was just laying down his trap. And it wasn't until I became fully invested basically in the relationship, that's when his mask fell off. And it had probably been falling off, but this is when it really fell off. And when the hyper controlling, the gaslighting, the meanness, the yelling, all that stuff eventually turns into physical abuse, which then turned into just absolute horrible physical violence. It was about 3 years into the relationship. I had a friend who called law enforcement without me knowing. I was contacted by law enforcement. That kind of got the ball rolling. It just took me a while to get out from that point because it took you 3 years to get in. And then something like that, oftentimes it takes a long time to unwind it. Plus add in you're brainwashed. You're led to believe it's your fault, that you're doing something wrong. So I would say that once I finally got an advocate and had the DA's office behind me and started to really understand what was really happening, then I started to realize my life was truly on the line. I mean, this man very nearly killed me many, many times. He ended up getting arrested. He ended up going to prison. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison, of which he served about 3.5. And he's been out now since 2019. I have a 10-year restraining order, which runs out in 2027. That's my story.
Stephanie, you said that he very nearly killed you. What does that look like in this case? I mean, what's actually taking place?
Well, I mean, he would, hate to say it, I'm sorry to curse, but he would literally beat the shit out of me, throw me around, slam me into walls, sit on top of me, where I would feel like my organs were going to explode or my rib cage was going to break. He actually did fracture my sternum, which is a hard bone to break. That's like something you get in a car accident, from kneeling on me. And he started strangling me towards the end I wouldn't say regularly, but more times than anybody would want to be strangled. And I later learned that gets you so much closer. That person's getting so close to killing you.
It's supposed to be the chances of getting killed are 7 times greater once they cross that threshold.
Yes. So I was dealing with this kind of intense abuse, I would say, for a good year. And then once he knew he was in trouble and had a warrant out for his arrest, which he beat the warrant, which I talk about in that first interview we did. That was June. And then between June and September, when he was finally incarcerated, I honestly don't know how I survived it physically. I don't know. Like I told you, I had to play his game. I had to pretend like I was kind of still into him, even though I absolutely was not. But I knew that was the only way that I would make it out of that situation alive. Is if he didn't feel me truly, truly pulling away, because I would have been done for. So he had a warrant out for his arrest. He knew I had gone to the police. So he would check the court website every day, several times a day. And he saw when the warrant went active. And he borrowed money from somebody and went in and paid that bail money. So he basically bailed himself, posted bail before being arrested, if that makes any sense. I mean, his bail, they set it at $440,000.
And he actually came up with that?
He came up with that. He was in real estate and he had a big deal that was in escrow, and he convinced his client to pay him the commission up front. The lead investigator on my case broke her back, and I didn't know it. So it was just this whole weird thing that happened. And so from June to September, when they arrested him, that was when I was having to really play a serious gambling game, because that was when the strangulation really was like, he would be strangling me until I was blacked out and like urinating. And I mean, I was so close to death. My vocal cords were damaged. It took like a year till I didn't have a raspy voice. But anyway, he ended up getting remanded into prison in September when he went to his hearing, because the investigator had asked the judge to increase his bail to $1 million, knowing he wouldn't be able to bail out. And the judge agreed to that. And that from that day forward, I've never spoken to him again. So that's why I had to really hedge my bets.
It's one thing to play along with somebody and just walk around each other like two angry cats in the house, but to actually have somebody who is physically, practically taking you out of this world. And then when you finally get yourself together and literally clean yourself up, I mean, take a shower because of what's going on, you just explained it, to then go back to your original position of, I just need to wait this thing out. That is strength I've never heard of before. That's just amazing.
I appreciate you saying that. And yes, I am a strong person who was very weak in so many ways at that time. But honestly, I really feel like it was just a survival instinct. I just knew that I had to do this in order to survive. I knew it without a shadow of a doubt. With every molecule in my body, I knew that if I didn't pretend to still want to kind of be in it and kind of pretend like I was kind of on his side, he would 1,000% take me out. I was still intimate with him here and there. And that was part of the problem in that relationship, was that I was kind of in an addictive situation where the reward from being abused, oftentimes with him being very sweet to me and kind to me in a romantic sense. So it's so sick and twisted. But in those last few months, it wasn't something that I was really into. I just, again, was just kind of trying to keep him satiated, knowing that final finish line at some point in the very near future.
You had to take this twisted life you were leading and play along like, this is it. This is normal for us. This is what we do.
He knew that I was pulling away, but I don't think he understood or really truly felt that I was done and that I was just kind of hanging in there in order to survive.
Didn't he also at times challenge you to find out if you're the one that's kind of behind him getting in and out of a lot of trouble?
He knew I had gone because I told him that I went after this one December. He held me hostage at his house. There were so many times, sometimes they blend and I'd have to look at like my case file, but he knew I went to the police. He didn't know how much I was speaking with them. He didn't know that they downloaded my phone. He didn't know that I had this lengthy interviews with the investigators. He didn't know that part of it. I just sort of pretended like I didn't even ever talk about that, but he did know that I went. My friend Todd went to them initially, which got this all going, but then I went to them like once or twice after that. But he doesn't know to what extent I did. He had a warrant out for his arrest. He knew. I told them.
Surprised he didn't just take you out right there.
Yeah, I was when that warrant came out that June and he wanted to meet me and I didn't want to go to his house. I met him at a public place in a parking lot. He was holding this bunch of papers in his hands, like, they're coming after me. And I was like, who's coming after you? Because I didn't know about the warrant. I mean, I knew something out there was floating around, but I didn't know like a specific timeline. And he's like, they're coming after me. Do you know how many charges are against me? And I said, well, did you do anything? Was there any actions that you did to me that would make them file all these charges against you? Even in the moment where he's laying out his felony charges, and they were very serious, and there were like 16 of them. He still would not. But think back to that moment. I'm like, okay, this person is just out of their mind, crazy, narcissist, malignant.
When he was into his worst physical harm to you, did his appearance change? How would you describe that?
Yeah, his eyes would like turn black, and he would have like just this rage. He would puff up, he would grit his teeth, and he was a big man. I mean, he was like 6'2", like probably about 240, had just this big, mean, scary sounding, yelling voice. And he didn't look like he was all there. And sometimes he was drinking and sometimes he wasn't. It wasn't just because he was drinking. This happened when he wasn't drinking. The drinking, I think, made it come on maybe more intensely. But yeah, he definitely, the black eyes thing, like stands out to me. And just like, almost like he was like, I don't know, he wasn't like getting off on being violent, but I don't even know how to describe it. It was like he was releasing something, like taking everything out on me.
Did he have things in his life? Do you think that he had all this baggage and then it was manifesting and you became his go-to punching bag?
He was in this bitter custody battle with his ex-wife, and she definitely did the right thing. I mean, kudos to her for protecting their son. And her and I did communicate, through the end of this. And when he got arrested and she was willing to come and testify on my behalf, I never went to trial because he pled guilty because he's a coward. And then thinking back, he didn't get along with his siblings. I think he was one of 5 and he only got along with like one sister. If there's a person and they've got all these problems and these relationships around them, he was the problem. Things happen in childhood. I don't remember him telling me about any sexual abuse, or I don't even remember him telling me about physical violence from his parents. I'm just not quite sure why he ended up this terrible.
His situation today, what do you know about him?
I do background check on him probably once a year. And I did a recent one probably, within the last year. And he has been arrested for a DUI in the last couple of years and contempt of court. I don't know what that all means. If the contempt of court is because getting a DUI was a violation of parole, or I honestly don't know. What that did tell me is that he doesn't live anywhere around where I live, because I know where he got his DUI, which is where I'm assuming he has been living. That actually brought me some comfort.
Would you say thousands of miles or hundreds?
Hundreds, but not thousands. We're in the same state. He has no regard for consequences. I mean, if I went to prison, big boy, scary, I would do everything possible to not ever have to go back there. The fact that he got himself into this kind of trouble again says everything you need to know about this horrible man. So I did research back in the day when he was segregated from the general population. He was like separated into like a different area, probably because he did get beat up.
It's one thing if you're in there and you robbed a bank and shot a bunch of people and did all that, then okay. But if you go in there for beating up, doing things to children or women, we're going to have to beat the hell out of you. I do want to ask you, you have 2 wonderful abstract paintings behind you. How would you describe them, for one thing, because it's not easy? All kinds of colors and they sort of swirl around and do different things. I wish I could show this to people, but there's a story behind those and a story behind the person who painted those.
Yes. The paintings behind me are from, I'm happy to say his name. His name's Todd Scalise. He's a professional artist residing in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And he is the person who originally called law enforcement on my behalf when I couldn't do it myself and got them involved. So he kind of is in a way, my saving grace, the person that was the first person to really step up and stand up for me because he knew I was in trouble. How I would describe them is, well, the one that's more orangey and brown, he would say is has masculine energy. And the other one is more of a feminine energy painting. He's done some incredible work up in Santa Fe. And I have several paintings of his actually hanging up at my house. Here he is in my office. Every time I look at those paintings, I think of him and I am reminded that how grateful I am for him.
You could look at those paintings. They represent 2 doorways on you getting out of that horrible part of your life. They really do. How did he know to go to law enforcement? I mean, did you work with him at the time? Or?
No, we were friends. I gone out to help him with a couple of art events that he did in Santa Fe back in the day. And he's like one of my closest friends. And I sent him a photo, a really terrible photo of myself where Michael had bit my nose. I was a mess. I sent him that photo in case if I ever died, somebody had proof of what was happening. Because at that time I hadn't told. He was the only person that I had ever really told. He went to law enforcement, gave him that picture, and I had opened up to him at that point. He knew some of what was happening. I'm sure he downplayed it. And he's like, not on my watch. Called our local sheriff's department and talked with them and said, you need to call her and check on her because she's being severely abused. And that's what got the ball rolling. That's what started my extrication from that nightmare.
From that moment to you being out of there, or Michael's off to prison, how much time are we talking about?
Oh, from when he's out of when he went to prison?
From the time that Todd went to police to Michael being in prison and okay, right now I am truly safe. How much time?
About 3.5 years. It took me 3.5 years to get out from that point.
Anybody listening to your story or any story like this, the thing that people tend to go to is they would say, if somebody beat the hell out of me, if somebody took me about one step away from the pearly gates, if somebody got me that close, they'd never have another shot at me. And yet I hear these stories all the time that somehow you just are so emotionally stuck in that world that it happens and it happens and it happens. And being on the outside, being objective, and it didn't happen to me sitting over here, you're over there. It's just stupefying.
It is. And I was one of those people. I had a roommate in my early 20s who had an abusive boyfriend, and he was bad. He was a bad guy. Ran her over with a car, like broke her leg, would break into her home and steal like her shoes so she couldn't go to work. Just a monster. And I just remember judging her, thinking, why are you letting yourself? I knew something was wrong with him. But then I became that person. I felt so bad. I wanted to try to reach out to her and apologize. She didn't know I thought that way, but I felt so guilty that it's like, how dare I? And here's the thing. When you're in an abusive situation, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, you are so broken down emotionally. You're so weak. You just don't even know what to think. You don't know which side's up because it's so dizzying and it's just so terrible. Like you don't even trust yourself. Like you don't even trust yourself. Like you don't even know which move to make. I started to think it was my fault. I started to truly believe it was my fault. And so I know other women listening know exactly what I'm talking about. On top of being so weakened emotionally and physically, like you just don't even have the strength or the belief in yourself. How is this ever going to get better? I had just about resigned myself. Unless you're in it, you have no idea how hard it is to get out. And I was judged. Oh my God, I lost friends. I had people say nasty things to me. You have no idea. You have no idea.
What did they say to you?
I had somebody say, well, don't ever call me again if you're with that guy.
Yeah, that's about the worst they can do.
I don't remember specific words said to me, but the judgment was definitely there. Like, what is wrong with you? Well, I'm already feeling what is wrong with me. And now you're supposed to be an ally and you're telling me what is wrong with me. So I guess there must be something really wrong with me.
You're just existing. In fact, you're even wondering at times, I guess, why go on?
Yeah.
Did you ever think about goodbye? I'm out of here.
I did. He would leave me in restaurants. That was like a thing that he would do. One time he left me 2 hours from home over a mountain pass. I was stuck. One time he left me somewhere and I was walking home and I was just so exasperated. I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done it because of my children, but I really thought about jumping off this bridge. I was just like, I just can't even stand this anymore. Like, what is happening with me? This is so insane to me. And that is definitely not the answer. And that is why I do what I do. That's why I tell my story, is because I want people to see that there is light at the end of the tunnel and you absolutely can get through it.
10 years before Michael came along, how would you describe your self-esteem in those days?
Great. Good.
Optimistic, everything?
Super optimistic. I'm a naturally happy person. So I'd say definitely that. I could see a really bright future for myself. My kids were really little. My daughter wasn't born yet. I just felt really happy with life. I didn't have any real worry, maybe a little bit of financial worries, as we do when we're young and struggling. But I was just really excited and I felt like things always would fall into place for me. Opportunities would present themselves. I trusted myself. Like I knew when to act, when to pull the trigger on something, say yes to something, or, take advantage of an opportunity that was presented. Positive, very positive. So,
what year did Michael finally come out of your life for good?
2016.
At this point, we're talking 9 years ago. If we take the Stephanie 10 years before Michael, and now we have the Stephanie roughly 10 years after Michael, how do you compare you now and that Stephanie?
I feel like I'm so much wiser. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, as trite and cliche as that is.
You are muscle bound at this point. I mean, come on. I'm fortunate because I only know this Stephanie. I don't know the the poor beaten down version at all.
Oh, thank goodness.
The first guy you married put you through it too.
My first marriage, it was very mentally and emotionally abusive. Then we have Michael. I survived those 7 years. And then my mom passed, and I just had this realization, this is all connected. This is all connected. If she were still here, I probably would have got there eventually, but maybe not as fast. I mean, this woman adopted me, then abandoned our family for another man when I was 8 years old. She wasn't all bad, but she definitely wasn't all good. So I feel like having gone through that, and here we are now and about to go into 2026, I feel a whole nother level of peace and I guess liberation really is the best word I can think of. I feel so liberated.
When something like that happens, you have this kind of ongoing thing with your mother. You know what you had when you were there. You know it didn't feel great at times, and then it might feel okay, and time passes. Then you get caught up in other things, and it's like it really hasn't settled yet. It hasn't really shown itself for exactly what it was because there's so much going on. It's like the fog of life sometimes. And then somebody passes, and all that gray stuff goes away, and you just see it in black and white. And it's like, she really was not great to me. And I felt left out in the cold. Once you realize what you really had, I think you can live with it. But when it's going on, you don't know what to do with it. I mean, you've kind of found a place to put her in your mind and then just let it be that.
Right. And I think it's all connected. And so now that I think that I'm really moving through that, I didn't know that she was sick. Like nobody told us. And she moved close to my kids when they were younger. They're both now out of the house. I'm an empty nester basically. So she did do those nice things, but when she died, it happened pretty suddenly. It was really sad. She had dementia and I didn't even know it. I'm like, how long has she had this? Maybe this has been part of I don't know. That whole thing was so shocking. So it took time. It took a few months after her passing to kind of come out of that and then to really see the big picture. Now I see it for what it is. I feel, liberated.
It's a great feeling, especially just reliving some of the things that you went through.
I am in a beautiful marriage. I'm in a beautiful relationship. I love my job. My kids are doing great. And something else, just to kind of dovetail back to like my upbringing and even talking about Michael and how he was with his child. I do not parent and never have parented my kids the way my mom parented me, which makes me feel really good. So to see my kids happy and sure they have their moments and they're going through the human experience as young adults, but just the way I am with them, the way that I show up for them unconditionally is something that I didn't get. I mean, I'm really doing great. I don't really have much to complain about.
The kind of things you're doing, could you talk about some of that? I mean, you're doing, did you say radio work?
I'm in public relations at a resort property. I have a very entertainment heavy job. Press releases. I am the liaison between media outlets and the artist that's coming to perform at the venue that I work at and the resort that I work at. I write television scripts and radio script. I do a radio report every Wednesday where I go on 4 different radio stations and talk about what's happening at our property. I do media tours with talent and take them to the different media outlets, TV, radio, and so they can talk about their performance. And I sometimes feel like I'm a glorified cheerleader, but I'm also a writer, former journalist. And I mentioned to you when we first talked, a lot of journalists go into PR because it pays better.
Was it newspaper back in those days?
Yeah. I mean, my job is not stressful. It's challenging sometimes, but it's in a good way. But I love what I do. And I love the team I work with. And it's not a brain drain.
And you're rewarded for your hard work. Everything's good with that?
Yes. I do freelance stuff. I write articles for a couple companies and I'll write social media captions for something else. But once you get it down, and it's fun.
If you could crystallize this moment, how would you say you're doing now? And I mean the whole full spectrum of your week and your year and your life.
It's an interesting question. And my answer is interesting. And You can take it out or leave it in. Obviously it's up to you. But my mother died in 2024, January.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Gee. Oh.
But she was kind of an abusive person. Not really physically, but definitely emotionally and mentally. I don't think I really realized the damage that was done to me from the time I was a young child through my adulthood, and how that abuse paved the way that got me into my diabolical situation with Michael. And I feel like now that she has passed, and may she rest in peace, I kind of feel like she was my original abuser. It's taken for her to pass away for me to like really be able to open up that can of worms and sort of see. And I'm not blaming her, but I was an innocent child. She didn't make the decisions that I made. So I'm very well aware of that. But I think it's really helped me heal even more, that I can even bring that up or talk about it, because I didn't really feel I could even totally express that, because I didn't want to badmouth my mother. The truth is the truth. I'm 53 years old now. Half my life is lived, if not more. And that type of action is completely unacceptable in my life at all, anymore, from anybody or anything. So I feel like I've evolved another sort of spiral up of healing after my mom has passed. And, when this whole thing was happening, I remember when this thing was happening with Michael, and I was in the throes of it, and she knew I went to them initially the first time in 2013, and she got mad at me. She got mad at me that I went for help. She wasn't warm and kind and encouraging or comforting. It was more like, why did you do that? I want you to understand the severity and the gravity of what that experience was like, and with how bad she treated me and would gaslight me and all the things that I ended up with people like that. That's why I said she was my original abuser. She wasn't punching me and doing stuff, but I mean, how do you adopt a child and then walk out of their lives when they're already feeling vulnerable because they're adopted?
How old were you when you were adopted?
I was 6 weeks old.
Right from the beginning.
And then she met my stepdad and left our family for him.
So these days you are remarried. And if I remember correctly, you had your BMW in a shop. Neil was working on it. And all of a sudden the light came on, and it's like, I like him. And turns out he liked you. And here you are, married how many years?
We've been married 3.5 years, but we've been together for close to 9 years.
Really? Okay. That's great.
We met about a year after Michael went away. But yeah, I met him, wasn't looking for anything at all. Absolutely did not trust myself. That just wasn't even in my orbit.
Weren't shopping
At all. No, sir. I really felt like it was love at first sight for me. I just very humble and manly. And it took us a long time. I mean, we circled around a relationship for a while because, I was scared. He had got his heart broken years before. And so he wasn't looking for anything. And I think we were both just like, I don't know, like, do we really want to do this kind of thing? But then as we're asking each other that, we were doing it. Like we were basically in a relationship. I'm like, well, I think it happened. And I didn't tell him right away what had happened with me, but I eventually did tell him a few months into it. He's such a traditional gentleman. Like he just can't even wrap his head around just somebody doing that. We live a great life. We both love our jobs and we communicate super openly. We don't keep secrets. Something's bothering one of us, we talk about it, but honestly, we don't really fight. I know that sounds crazy. We really get along really, really great. Life throws things and discussions, and you get on each other's nerves sometimes, the way you just do. You're a human being, but we don't have like big, crazy disagreements.
That's great. Open communications where it's at, right?
Yeah.
Thinking about it, he actually is my guest on that third episode. You have episode 42 and 43, and Neil is 44.
That's right.
Somebody wanting to hear your other half. I won't say better half. And Neil does a nice job on that. I mean, what I love about him is he's a real guy. He's just a real guy, and he just tells you things, and he's very soft spoken, very easy to listen to, very realistic. Thank God, very protective of you, which is great. Maybe the first time in your life you've had one of those.
It's true.
You think about it from birth to now.
It's true. He can articulate feelings and things I feel better than I can. Like he's very, I don't want to use the word mature. I mean, he is a mature person, but he's no fuss, no muss. He can see through a situation and describe it for what it is without attaching any emotion to it. Although he is an emotional person, he has emotions. He is just a straight shooter and can see things very clearly. And I appreciate that.
It's great to have somebody like that in your life who doesn't give it a lot of fluff and put flowers around it and say, look, you told me all these things. Let me tell you what I think. And then you take it in. What was it that made you want to come out and put your very private story on full display around the whole world?
Just didn't want it to be a secret because I had kept it secret out of shame. I was so ashamed. And I had compartmentalized my life, my work life, my mom life, and then this horrible thing that was happening in my life. And I just didn't want to keep that a secret anymore. And most importantly, I really, truly wanted to help others. I wished I would have had somebody like me to talk to because of the amount of despair and hopelessness I was in. If I had me today, it would have given me so much hope and strength and something to cling on to when I felt I had nothing. And to me, that is like the greatest gift I could give back out of such a tragedy, which turned into like a wonderful triumph. You can do it too. I mean, there are resources and there's a way to do it. Please let my story inspire you.
Listening to your story today, there would be nothing that would lead you to think that this is going to end well. There's no doors to this hell house life that you had. Like you said, you just stayed strong, and it's like I'm going to come out of this thing one way or another. And to come out of it in such a fabulous way. I mean, I know that you still got baggage from those days. Anybody would, but still, my goodness, look at you now.
Healing is not linear, right?
I like that a lot. I think there are a lot of things in life that happen, I feel like, in steps. You'll be on this certain level for a while, and then all of a sudden it occurs to you, whoa, I'm feeling so much better about my life, and I actually have things I want to do and look forward to. And I remember years ago, I want to do these things. I can do them now. And it's like, whoa, I just came up a level. Look at that. I don't think life is done on curves, and it can go either way. I mean, you drop down steps too.
Oh, yeah.
Now look at my life. Boom. Now look at my life. Boom. You're coming down, down, down. You're in the basement of your life.
Yeah. And dealing with nightmares. I don't have them too much anymore, but I used to have really bad nightmares.
What do they look like? Are you right back with him?
That, or it's more him stalking me, or like I had a really bad one about a year or two ago where I felt like I was awake, but I was asleep. I was in my bed. So I was in where I was asleep. So that's why it felt so real. And I opened my eyes. He was standing at the foot of my bed with a gun pointed at me. So real. It was so scary. I'll have dreams where I'm at a mall and I see him and he's like looking at me through like a shop window, and I'm like trying to get away and go a different direction. I've had dreams where I'm trying to warn a woman that he's with that he's a very dangerous man. And the woman's like, oh, he's the greatest or whatever. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, you don't. Please, for your safety, please get out.
When somebody's in a situation like you've been in, let's say this is real and it's not a dream. You say, you know what, I'm going to be bold. I'm going to catch up with her. I'm going to say, look, you need to know about this guy. Here's what he did. Here's what he did. All I hear is that person will look at you and say, you know, I was told you were crazy. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty obvious you are crazy and you need to get away from me and leave us alone. Okay. Because, you know, you're separated from reality here, because that's not the guy that I'm with. Okay. When you listen to podcasts and you hear other survivor stories, how does that make you feel?
Very sad. Sad for what that person went through. It makes me feel cheering for the person that they've made it out. Oftentimes it'll feel interesting and almost kindred that somebody knows what I went through. Maybe experience. I don't want anybody to experience Also think that I'm not alone. I'm not the only person that's ever gone through this. And I'm so glad that people are talking about this. A more talked about thing, because for so long it just wasn't. It was like the 50s and I don't know, the 70s, when now that it's like openly talked about, I'm really glad. I'm really glad. Your show has been a godsend.
And there are other ones like it. I appreciate what they're doing. I think all of us are really trying to shine a light on something that was hidden away for so long and happened behind that door over there at that house, and no one in the neighborhood would know unless you're wondering why Mrs. Jones wears a long sleeve sweater in the middle of July, the bruises. What advice would you give to someone who's listening to you today and thinks that they might be in a toxic, dangerous relationship? What would you say to that person?
I would say if they're even questioning if they are, they probably are. The fact that their psyche is even thinking that way tells me there's a red flag there. I would say to do research, to get in touch with an advocate, to talk to somebody, do it on the down low. You don't want to, I would say you don't want to expose yourself to whoever you think is abusing you mentally or emotionally or physically. It does not get better. It will never get better. I honestly have not ever heard of somebody being an abuser have a change of heart and a personality shift and change, because in my experience, talking with people and listening to people on your podcast, it will only get worse. And why waste any precious days, hours, months of your life on some person that doesn't care about you? Because ultimately they don't. Because if they did, they wouldn't be doing this. Do your research, get help, talk to somebody, get a therapist, and know that you're worthy. You're a human being. You were born on this earth to do wonderful things. And you weren't born on this earth to be abused in any form or fashion. Get out.
I really appreciate that. You're saying a lot of things that I think can't be said enough to people. Your job in life is not to play lifeguard to somebody who is hurting you. Your job is to save you. Like, save yourself and then go help save other people. If you want to put your time into doing something, go save people who have a similar situation to what you have. But trying to go fix your abuser. And chances are, accidentally, you'll enable that person to do more of what he or she is doing to you.
That's what I did. I just basically enabled him to get worse.
Stephanie, thank you for rejoining our listeners and me. Your story shows how things can get so horrible, but with enough desire, someone's world can change, and yours looks nothing like you had years ago. You had to play it smart, you had to be patient, and be seriously determined. And now we look at you today. You are a powerful inspiration. I tell you, I wish everybody could see what I'm looking at right now. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. And thanks for having me on. And it is my wish that my story does truly help even just one person, but I would love for it to help many more.
It will. It absolutely will. Thank you. We like to rejoin survivors like Stephanie because we want to tell the world there is life, a great life, after survivors get free from the abuse and the offenders. All stories are different, and yet structurally, there seem to be many similarities. The similarities found in freedom tell us to get out early if things do not feel right. And if you feel stuck, then seek help. You must be strong. Be determined, because your new life awaits you. Thank you for listening to the When Dating Hurts podcast. Subscribe and receive life-saving information from experienced individuals who are freely offering it to you. If you have a survivor story you want the world to hear and will help the many thousands who are listening, please write me at billmitchell@whendatinghurts.com. That's billmitchell@whendatinghurts.com. Storytelling is a sure way to enlighten others while bringing new feelings of freedom from abuse to yourself. Hi, it's Bill. I'm proud to say the When Dating Hurts podcast is part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. To learn more about Evergreen Podcasts or to check out other shows on the Evergreen Network, just visit evergreenpodcasts.com. The When Dating Hurts podcast is providing this platform for information to be shared. We do not state with any certainty that anything is true or untrue. Understand that what you hear is the viewpoint of the people sharing. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only. Any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional advice.